أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد، الله الصمد، لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده، سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم ارزقنا توفيق الطاعة وبعد المعصية. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده، سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته وارفع درجته. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده، سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إنه ليس لي علم بموضع رزقي، وإنما أطلبه بخطرات تخطر على قلبي، فأجول في طلبه البلدان، فأنا فيما أنا طالب كالحيران، لا أدري أفي سهل هو أم في جبل، أم في أرض أم في سماء، أم في بر أم في بحر، وعلى يدي من ومن قبل من، وقد علمت أن علمه عندك وأسبابه بيدك، وأنت الذي تقسمه بلطفك وتسببه برحمتك. اللهم فصل على محمد وآله، واجعل يا رب رزقك لي واسعا، ومطلبه سهلا، ومأخذه قريبا، ولا تعنني بطلب ما لم تقدر لي فيه رزقا، فإنك غني عن عذابي، وأنا فقير إلى رحمتك. فصل على محمد وآله، وجد على عبدك بفضلك، إنك ذو فضل عظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Brothers and sisters, as Maulana is assigning the member, if you can please recite Surah Fatiha for Marhum Mukhtar Ali Makhraj, Marhum Rubab Bano, Marhum Shaban Ali Ghulam Hussain, and include all of your Mahrumin also with a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. For the love of our beloved Prophet and his beloved progeny, please recite a second loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajah. For the hastening in the return of our beloved 12th Imam, a third final loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajah. I begin by praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He accepts all of our acts of worship, all of our a'mal, during these days and nights of this month of Muharram, this month of Safar, in which we mourn our beloved Imam and all of the masa'ib that he is going through. Tonight, inshallah, we will continue with the khutbah known as Khutbatul Muttaqeen. This khutbah in which Ali ibn Abi Talib was explaining to his companion, the famous companion Hammam, about the characteristics of those true believers, those true servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we mentioned at the very beginning of the khutbah, by the end of this khutbah, the companion of Imam Ali, he passed away. And he fainted as per the narration. This is what the narration tells us. And the narration says that Ali ibn Abi Talib was hesitant at the beginning of mentioning these characteristics because of this exact reason. Nonetheless, he goes through these different characteristics. We reached the third characteristic that Amir al-Mu'mineen is mentioning. He said, number 3, the third characteristic of these individuals is this. وَمَلْبَسُهُمْ الْإِقْتِصَادِ. These individuals are the type, they dress in a moderate way, they dress in an average way. And we said that it's not just the dress that the Imam is talking about, it's not just the clothing that the Imam is talking about, he's talking about their lifestyles. This is a very critical issue. And I see this in most of the communities that you see across North America, we have this issue. So this one line that the Imam is mentioning is actually a very important topic. It says, مَلْبَسُهُمْ الْإِقْتِصَادِ. These are the type of individuals who, when you spend time with them, they don't have the type of clothing that has a bunch of stitches in it and, patches all over it and it got holes in it. It's not like that. It's also not the other type where you have, this name brands and, paying money for the type of things that don't really add much value. It's just a brand, it's just a name. You don't see that with them either. They're malbasuhum al-iqtisad. Iqtisad, muqtasid, means the one who's walking in the middle. It's a moderate approach. And of course, the Imam is not just talking about the clothing that they buy. He's also talking about their lifestyles as well. Lifestyles are not the lavish lifestyles. Even if this person is the type of person who makes a lot of money, his lifestyle is not a lavish lifestyle. It's very important. Why is this so important? Because across North America now, especially the Shia population, the Sunni population is a bit different. Their scenarios are a bit different. The Shia population, you will find many of those who migrated to this part of the world as first generation immigrants. Now they've had children. Now the children are growing up. The children are becoming part of the society. And so you have second generation immigrants. First generation immigrants, many of them, most of them, they were struggling with the basics. If they could just put food on the table, if they could just find a job, for example, if they could just lift themselves and their families out of the situation that they were in, it would have been a wonderful achievement. Come to the next generation, no, things are different for them. Many of them are born and raised here. They speak the language. They have a lot of different privileges and opportunities that their parents did not have. And essentially what that means is a lot of economic opportunities for them. Financially, a lot of them are set. His father, his mother might have been in a situation where when they were 20 years old, they were struggling with the basics. This person, when he's 20 years old, he's probably working a corporate job already. 25, he's already going up that ladder. It's very different from their families and their parents. This is what we see in our own community. We see it in other communities as well. But here's the problem. So you find economic opportunities. Is that a problem? No, that's not a problem. It's a wonderful thing. But then you find as this person settles into this lifestyle that's full of opportunities, you will find he almost lives a life that has just as much pressure in it as his parents' life did. Even though economically things are 10 times easier for him. He's under pressure just the way his parents were under pressure. If you sit with him, he says, oh, I have this payment I have to make, that payment I have to make. And then this person gets married, it puts pressure even on the marriage. This happens all the time. I spoke to someone living in a state where the state is not an expensive state. You know, we have expensive states, we have cheaper states. This is a cheaper state this person was living in. Yes? How much do you make? North of $200,000. And yet you find this marriage has pressure on it. How does that work? It's a lot of money. How does this work? Yes? This is a problem we have. What's the problem? At the very root of it is this. As much as economic opportunities came the way of this person, his cost of living and his standard of living continued to raise with it. As much as he's, alhamdulillah, able to produce, his cost of living is just going up with it. And because his cost of living just continues to rise and grow, the margin he has with what he's making is just the margin that his parents had with what he was making. Feels the same pressure on the household that his parents felt. But your parents were struggling with the basics though. But he's living a life, it almost feels like he's struggling with the basics as well. Why? Because we live in a society and a culture that you're taught that however much you make, you have to spend whatever you have. It's a consumerist culture. Consumerism is all around us. They will tell you this is a fundamental difference between the Islamic perspective and the Western perspective. They will tell you if we don't live a consumerist lifestyle, economy won't work. It all fail. It all fall apart. Everyone has to have that consumerism so that what happens? So that you buy that product, your money goes into this economy and it continues to function. Otherwise, the whole economy will fall apart. I don't want to go into that discussion. That's a very deep discussion. This consumerist lifestyle, where this person is now married, 30 years old, 35 years old, this marriage is under pressure. Why? This makes no sense at all. Why? Because malbasuhum al-iqtisad was not part of his lifestyle. His understanding was whatever I make, it has to go out the other door. Who said this? Ali ibn Abi Talib was the type of person, he produced a lot of wealth. But you looked at his life, it was so modest. So modest. And it's interesting because in the khutbahs of Ali, he himself says, I don't expect you to live this type of lifestyle. He says, Allah, know that your imam is okay with a couple of loaves of bread. That's how he passes his life. And then he says, Allah wa innakum la taqdiruna ala dhalik. Says, know that you won't be able to pull this off. I can only pull this off. I'm not expecting this from you. But he says, you have to try though. He says, help me with your ijtihad. Ijtihad means what? At least try and struggle on this path. So a little bit, you can't pull this off. You can't live on a loaf of bread. None of us can. But at least get closer to the lifestyle of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And then this person who doesn't live this lifestyle, where he has a moderate approach to his expenses, when there comes times where he actually needs to help, when there comes times that he has to actually invest from that economic opportunity that he has in his life, he's not able to. And when there are poor individuals who don't have food to eat, this person can't give them anything. Why? Because he gave his money to this payment and this corporation and that corporation. Now he's living a lifestyle where he can even barely carry himself. Can he uplift his parents? Can he uplift his relatives? Can he uplift his community? No, he can't do any of those things. Because he's tied down himself. This wealth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with, this is an amana. You don't just sit there and say, alhamdulillah, I'm making this much. So now, instead of driving this car, I can afford this car. Instead of this house, I can afford this, this house instead. And this clothing, now I'm going to spend this much on it. No, malbasuhum al-iqtisad. These are the type of people, they live a moderate lifestyles. If we don't do this, our communities will fail, as unfortunately you will see across North America. For the most part, they are. For the most part, they are. This person will live this type of lifestyle. Now, if you tell him, we're going to educate your child, there's some financial investment you have to make for your child, then all of a sudden this person is like, the hands are trembling all of a sudden. Say, but this income, what happens? Because his cost of living is right up there with his income as well. Why? Because he was never taught to live this moderate lifestyle. In Islam, you don't spend just because you have it. It's not the way it works. It's not what Ali ibn Abi Talib taught us, yes? This is why the hadith of the sixth Imam says this. Recite the salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. He said, ضَمِنْتُ لِمَنْ اِقْتَسَدَ, I am guaranteeing for the one who اِقْتَسَدَ, who lives a moderate lifestyle, yes? Doesn't go crazy with his, his income. Okay, I will guarantee for this person what? أَنْ لَا يَفْتَقِرْ, that this person will not become poor. What does this mean? That a person who's making good income will never become poor? No, that's not what the hadith is saying. The hadith is saying if he manages things well, he has a lot of opportunities. But unfortunately, you don't see this. This financial literacy, major lack of it within our communities. Major. This person is just, in Farsi we say, he's just pul misuzuna. He's just like, burning his money. Burning through his money, we'd say in English, yes? There's nothing happening. There's no planning. There's no budgeting. There is no thought process. How am I going to uplift my community with this blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed me with? Ali ibn Abi Talib used to do this. We've gone through these ahadith. That he used to dig the well, and then the moment water would gush out, he would take a pen and a paper, and he would do waqf of it. So Ali was not some lazy, na'udhu billah, worker. No, he worked harder than you and I did. Except his lifestyle was al-iqtisad. He took some of it that he needed. Of course, he was different. Then the rest, he's giving it to his community, to those who are severely in need. For those of us living in this part of this world, we are going to have those opportunities. We have to keep our eyes open so that we don't miss out on those opportunities, because we can play a big role in bringing relief to those who don't have these opportunities. When you go back home and you visit back home, you see this. Many of your own relatives, many of your friends, they might be struggling with the basics at times. And here this second generation immigrant is there. It's almost as if he's struggling with the basics too. No, this is something we have to be careful about. So he says, number 3, these individuals, malbasuhum al-iqtisad, their lifestyle is a moderate one. Recite salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Moving on, number 4, he says, these individuals, mashyuhum at-tawadu'. When they walk, when they talk, when they carry themselves, they do that in a humble manner. They're humble individuals. Have humility with them, yes? And this humility is something that has been emphasized much in our religion. I want to share a quick story with you from the life of our Prophet. Because he referred to a person who has arrogance, a person who doesn't have humility, as a person who is crazy. He's lost his mind. He's insane, the Prophet has said. You say the Prophet one day is walking in the city of Medina, yes, or the alleys of Medina. They don't have streets or anything like that, or alleys at that time. Medina, many of us might think of it in terms of hundreds of thousands of people living there. No, it was smaller than this, yes? Jabir al-Ansari says the Prophet was walking and he came across a group of people who had gathered. This group of people had gathered around another individual. I don't know if you've seen this. Back home, this happens all the time. Right? You're walking, life is going on, and then you see somewhere, and there's like 50 people gathered somewhere, right? Happens a little less here, but more back home. He said he came across a group of people who had gathered around another individual. And there is multiple ahadith in which the Prophet, when he came across a gathering where people were having, when people had gathered in a certain situation, he would ask them, why is it that you've gathered here? And he would take that moment and he would turn it into a learning moment or a teaching moment. Right? On another occasion, he was in the masjid, he entered into the masjid, people had gathered around someone. This is not this hadith. I'll continue with this hadith momentarily. People had gathered around someone. He asked them, he said, who is this person that's so important? Everyone's gathered around him in the masjid. They said, he is a allama. He's the most knowledgeable. He has a lot of knowledge. He said, why is it that you say he has a lot of knowledge? What does he know? He said, he knows Arabic poetry and he knows genealogy, the generations and all of that kind of stuff. And the Prophet said, this person is not allama. This person knows some things that are good to know, but there are other things that are much more important to know in life. And then he listed them. He said, your aqa'id and your akhlaq and your day-to-day ahkam. He said, these are the things that if you don't know, you're going to run into problems. He said, what this person knows is also good, but it's the extra layer. If you know it, you know it. If you don't know it, you don't know it. The Prophet used these moments as teaching moments, yes? So he comes across this individual, or these people have gathered, and they've all gathered around an individual. He looks, asks people, says, what is it? They said, rajulun masru', a person who is dealing with sar'a. Sar'a was a disease, it was an illness where you would get seizures. Yes, and of course when you get a seizure, right, na'udhu billah, if someone's dealing with it, you're out of control and it almost seems as though you don't have control over yourself, yes? Everyone had gathered around this person. And forgive me, just going through the hadith, the people used the word that was a bit disrespectful towards this person. Said this is a person who's lost his mind. He's deranged. He's majnoon. People were calling this individual who was having this seizure. And immediately the Prophet changed their perspective. Said, no, this person is not deranged. This person, forgive me, he's not crazy. He's none of this stuff you guys are. He's not insane. He's none of this. He is al-mubtala. He's dealing with a difficulty. He's struggling. He's going through a trial, a tribulation. But let me tell you who is crazy and who is insane and who has lost his mind. Say, Ya Rasulullah, who is this person who's actually crazy? Lost his mind, he's deranged, he's out of it. Because we thought it's this person. Yes, we thought it's the one who, for example, forgive me, it's mentally ill. We would look at this person and say, this person, he's struggling, yes? Prophet said, no, this person he's going through a trial and tribulation. Let me tell you the one who's actually crazy, actually lost his mind. They said, who, Ya Rasulullah? He said, al-mutakabbir. He said, the one who's arrogant. He walks on earth as if he owns everything. And then he describes what this mutakabbir does. He says when he walks in a way as if to belittle everyone around him. And he looks to people over his shoulder. When you want to show someone importance, attention, right? What do? You go sit with them or you turn towards them when they're talking, yes? It says, no, this person who's arrogant, he looks at people like this, over his own shoulder. And he says, when he walks, he does not turn to them with his full body, just kind of from the side. Like, it doesn't matter what you're saying, He says, this is the one who's majnoon. This is the one who's really crazy. He's lost his mind, is this individual. But takabbur doesn't show itself always in this way. It presents itself in a multitude of ways. And I'll list some of those ways. Sometimes if you see that every discussion that you have with another person has to take 2.5 hours, usually one of these two people, or both, are extremely arrogant. Usually something happening here. That they are so stubborn that this discussion can't be a 10-minute discussion. It has to turn into 2.5 hours. Sometimes arrogance shows itself through being stubborn. He won't just say, I'm sorry and move on with life. No, you have to spend hours. I've seen this. Spend hours just to get him to say, I'm sorry. Sometimes arrogance shows itself in this way. Yes? Sometimes arrogance it shows itself in the fact that this person is easily annoyed by everyone. Yes? Someone says, even the slightest comment that might be, not to the best of his liking, he's easily annoyed. Why? Because he gives so much importance to himself. If anyone dare say anything less than utmostly respectful to him, he's taken back by it. And it's a big deal for him. This person, he came in,
He didn't give salam to me first. This person came in and he walked away like this. He's annoyed by everything. This is his arrogance is presenting itself in this way. Sometimes arrogance presents itself by bad akhlaq. He sees himself so important, everything starts to bother him. So he gets up in the morning, he doesn't have patience for anybody else. Sometimes it presents itself as bad akhlaq that he has. Sometimes it presents itself as a person who wants to make all of the decisions. In a marital relationship, he can't sit there and say, okay, what do you think? She can't sit there and say, what do you think? What's your opinion? Let's talk about this. No. I have to be the dominant one. I have to be the one who's making all. Otherwise, I'm not macho enough. Otherwise, I'm not important enough. Sometimes it presents itself that way. This arrogance presents itself in a multitude of ways. And our job is to look into our lives and see, do we find traces of these things? Because if we do, there's good news and there's bad news. The bad news is something to worry about. Good news is you remove it from your life becomes so much easier. The one who's not arrogant, his life becomes so much easier. Even if he comes across a person who, God forbid, disrespects him. And in Islam, by the way, you're not supposed to allow people to just disrespect you. You're not supposed to. If they disrespect you, if they're disrespectful towards you, either you let them know or you keep distance with them. Islam is not a religion that says, yes, you're a believer, just allow anyone to come and say anything to you. No, that's not Islam. You're a believer, you have respect, yes? Now sometimes it's a relative, it has certain things he says or she says, maybe you keep a little bit of distance. Yes? I mean, you can't close people's mouths, yes? You can't do that. But maybe you keep a little bit of distance from them. But the less arrogant someone is, the easier it is for him to get on with life when people make comments about him. They make comments about him because he doesn't see himself as so important. He can sit there and say, you know what, I don't agree with what this person is saying, and he's wrong, and what he's saying is disrespectful. But oh well, you can't stop everybody from talking. People talk. But if he's arrogant, it's the end of the world. Because how dare someone disrespect his holiness? Yes? This arrogance, the more you remove it from your life, the easier our lives become. This is the fourth characteristic. He says, وَمَشْيُهُمْ التَّوَاضُعُ. They walk in a humble manner. Then he moves on to the next characteristic, and that is they lower their gaze from those things that are haram to see. And we have a very long and important discussion here, because this is something that our younger brothers and the male in general is tasked with, and that we do not educate our young male and young children with this issue. And that's something that we will get to, inshallah, the following week. With that, inshallah, we'll bring tonight's talk to an end. Please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajam. Inshallah, we'll move on to the dua. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء، وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء، وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء، وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. Everyone. يا نور يا قدوس، يا نور يا نور يا قدوس، يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تقطع الرجاء، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء، اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها، اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك، وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك، وأن توزعني شكرك، وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع، أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا، وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته، وعدم فيما عندك رغبته، اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك، ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائحي ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك. ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي ظلمت وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي، كم من قبيح سترت وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلت وكم من عثار وقيت وكم من مكروه دفعته وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي، وقصرت بي أعمالي، وقعدت بي أغلالي، وحبسني عن نفعي بعد آمالي، وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها، ونفسي بجنايتها ومطالي. يا سيدي، فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي، ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي، من لي غيرك؟ أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي، أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي، فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء، فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك، وخالفت بعد أوامرك، فلك الحجة علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك، وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا، لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شده وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، يا رب ارحم، يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي. يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي، هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالفه برك به. يا إلهي وسيدي وربي، أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد من طوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لسانه من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك، هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيت أو تبعد من أدنيت أو تشرد من آويت أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمت. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النهر على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة وبشكرك مادحة، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنة. ما هكذا الظن بك، ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك، يا كريم يا رب، يا كريم يا كريم يا رب، وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها، وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه، قليل مكثوه، يسير بقاؤه، قصير مدته. فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه، ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي. صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك، وهبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك، أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك. فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين، ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين. أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته، وضاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته، وحبس بين أتباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك. يا مولاي، فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أتباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رباه؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك، ولا المعروف من فضلك، ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك. فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما، لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأنت جل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما. أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي، فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل قبيح أسررت وكل جهل عملت كتمته أو أعلنته أخفيته أو أظهرت وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت وأن توفر حظي من كل خير تنزل أو إحسان تفضله أو بر تنشر أو رزق تبسط أو ذنب تغفر أو خطأ تستر يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورا وبخدمتك موصولا وأعمالي عندك مقبولا حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قو على خدمتك جوارحي واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المبادرين وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد، ومن كادني فكد، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجدله بجودك، واعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأقلني عثرتي، واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرتهم بدعائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة، فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي، يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، اغفر لمن لا يملكه إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء، يا من اسمه دواء، وذكره شفاء، وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء، وسلاحه البكاء، يا سابغ النعم، يا دافع النقام، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد، وافعل بي ما أنت أهله، وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله، وسلم تسليما كثيرا. اللهم صل على محمد زيارة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.